really good. Yeah, that's really good. I was
Side?
no paprika.
No.
The Kobe burger is extremely tasty.
Everything is fresh, everything's
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like, I don't think.
Walter?
Oh, okay.
Oh, Walter found.
Mazel tov to the Messiah.
Yeah, Mazel Tov, very nice.
Yeah. We're on page 350, continuing in Hilchas Tzedakah. Tonight is December 31, 2019, last day of the year. Page 350, we're in volume 2, finishing up volume 2. The maximum amount that one should give is 1/5 of one's wealth.
Can you tell the IRS?
The reason for this is that one should not become poor as a result of giving tzedakah. Says Masechta Ksubis, Amar Rabbi Loi, Be'usha hiskinu, there were a number of takonos made in Usha. This is post-Churban. Hamavazbeis, whoever's giving away his money, Al Yivazbeis Yosef Michomesh. Taina Mahachi, there's a brisa to support that. Hamavazbeis, Al Yivazbeis Yosef Michomesh. You shouldn't give more than a fifth. Why? Because if you give more, Shami Yitztach Lebrios, you yourself will have to come on to other people for tzedakah. A guy wanted to give away his money, and his friend didn't let him. Umanu Rav Yishovev, and it was Rav Yishovev. And some say, right, V'amila Rav Yishovev, V'lo yinichu chaveru Umanu Rabbi Kiva. Who's the friend that prevented him from doing it? Rabbi Kiva. Rav Nachman, V'tem Rav Achabar Yaakov, Maikra. Where's the pasuk based that gives us this 1/5 business? It says, V'chol asher titein li, aser asrenu la. 1/10 times 1/10 is 1/5. Or 1/10 plus 1/10 is a fifth.
Right. That's what you say, what you
Yeah, 1/5.
Two tenths. V'haloidami isur basrol isur kamo. Yeah, but what do you mean? If you take a tenth of something, then you end up with 9, right? 1 and 9, and the next tenth is really a tenth of a 9. It's not really, doesn't come out exactly to a fifth. On Ravashi asrenu lebasroki kamo. The Ravashi answer is no, each tenth is exactly the same. And the Ramos cites this. Now, what are the exclusions? What are the exclusions where a person could give more than a tenth? More than a fifth? Says the Aruch HaShulchan, near a lead, the Lepidyon Shvuyim Rishon Lo Asif Al HaChomesh. Somebody has to be redeemed from a kidnapper or a pirate, so you can give more. V'chein l're'evim utzmein. Let's say somebody's starving to death or thirsty. So that's one exception. The Chofetz Chaim is going to go through other exceptions. The Chofetz Chaim had a sefer called Avas Chesed, which had to do specifically with tzedakah. It says Imlo mishu asher muflag. That means that takana of Usha, not to give more than a fifth, that's somebody who's a regular guy. But if somebody's Rothschild, somebody's a is massively wealthy, then you can give more. Because if he gives more, even if he gives 4/5 of his wealth, that 1/5 is going to be a massive amount of money. Or, for example, let's say right before his deathbed. There, he's not going to come on to the Brias because he's about to pass away. He can give away more than a fifth. Vida, the Mashas Kinu Chazal Shol Lufazer Yosef Mechomish Nira Dainu Davke Kishvazve is Nichse Beso Ayidezea Pizur. Kidamash Melosham Avazves. That means the wealth of his household. Aval Bedover Miut. But let's say a person has a set job and he earns a certain amount of living. That means every week he has a certain salary. He knows how much is left over, but he covers his expenses. Those surplus funds he can give more than a fifth because he has enough money. If you calculate it all up, if he ends up giving more than a fifth, that he's permitted to do that. Up until what we just said, that he's restricted, is only when you're giving regular poor people. Torah, but let's say it's a Talmid Chacham, who is poor and needs to learn Torah, mitzadid b'sefer shitas mekubetzes ksuvas daf mentes, the whole restriction of not more than chomish doesn't apply to that. So you can give more than chomish. So, in summary, Chafetz Chaim offers another exception. He notes that if Chazal directed a person not to spend too much money in the midst of tzedakah, then one certainly should not squander large amounts of money on material objects more than necessary. He then states that if one does live such a lavish lifestyle, even if one is not extremely wealthy, he is uncertain whether the principle of 1/5 would apply. I mean, in people who have enough money that they're buying all sorts of consumer goods, then this issue, he's already living beyond his means. So he may not qualify for the restriction of not giving more than 1/5. He could give more than 1/5. Says the Avos Chesed, Alachas kam v'kama kama yesh lo la'adam li'os zahir, shul lefazer memonu le'inyan reik shul kavod amadum. A person should not sort of waste his money on buying items that are just out of kavod. Hainu, lislabish mavushe rikma, to buy fancy clothes. Or the loder beichole kavod, or to live in very extravagant places. Ulishtamesh beribu amishorsim, many servants. Uvekelim ayoser yikarim, and has the most expensive plates. Shekolzem echalim amon shalom is man kotzer. He's got this. All these expenditures are causing his assets to go down in a very small time, and it, by itself, mavila de oini, he will become a poor person. V'sofli de gezel gam kein. However, v'noshim ke'eli, says the Chofetz Chaim, ein yodem shaychat samachta konadusha klal. So that this issue of not giving more than one's asset is the upper limit in most cases, and it's ideal to give this much if one is capable of doing so. Now, if not, what is the ideal amount to give? So the machlokes rishonim. Rishonim such as the Tur explain that the ideal amount relates more to the degree of the need of the poor. Ideally, the needs of the poor should be provided for completely. If that is not possible, then it's optimal, though certainly not required, to give up to 1/5 of one's earnings. Says the Tur, Shir Nesinosa, Im Yodom Maseges, if he has enough wealth to do it, Yitin Kivit Tzrachanim, he should give to whatever the Nenim need. Now, in Ein Yodom Maseges, the Kol Tzrachanim, if he doesn't have enough to provide all the Aniyim, Yitin Kifi Asagas Yodo, he should give to the maximum he can give. Kamahu Yitin, Ad Chomish, Techosef, up to 1/5. And Mitzvah Min HaMuvchar is 1/5. The echad me'aser midei beinanis. He says a middle ground is giving 1/10. Pachos mikain ayin ra. If you give less than 1/10, you're stingy. The Beis Yosef comments that the Yerushalmi seems to indicate that giving 1/5 is the most ideal option, if possible. And the Beis Yosef also states that Talmud Bavli may agree with that.
I don't know why I got the impression with 10%, not 1/5.
The mitzvah min hamuvchar is 1/5. The average would be 1/10. Anything less than 1/10 is not good. Now, you're talking about the concept of meiser ksafim, giving 1/10 of your assets. We'll see where that came from and what that's all about. And that's here we're in the category of your maximum. Up until now, we learned that the maximum is 20%. You shouldn't give more than 20%. And we brought the Tur seems to suggest that 20% seems to be the best thing to do.
Right.
We're on 353. Page 353, volume 2.
20% tzedakah
Is the maximum.
Is the mitzvah min hamuvchar.
And it says the Tur. Says the Tur. And the Beis Yosef says, Ad chomish nechaz mitzvah min hamuvchar, kein kosev HaRambam, ubeperek narish nispas, so Om Rabbi Loi, bu'ush iskinu, hamavaz bez ayivaz ve'yos mechoymesh, shami tzrech lebius, v'afal gav deloi mashma me'achar she'e mitzvah levaz ve'choymesh. There, it doesn't seem to suggest that it's a mitzvah to give 1/5. It's just that's your upper limit. The loy komer el she'im bol vazvez ayivaz ve'yos me'kein, me'ayushalmi in peya nire, shehu mitzvah. The Gemara in Peah seems to suggest that 1/5 is the mitzvah. The Gabin Talmudot Didon, our Talmud, which is the Talmud Bavli, Yesh L'Dagdek, he's going to bring us a proof. The mitzvah min hamuvchar levaz v'choymesh. The Ma'isi Lad is the Kanas Usha. Midichsiv v'chol asher titin la'aser aser law, train Isurei Dahainu Choimish. When the Gemara explains the pasuk of Asir Asrenu, it actually mentions a fifth. So the Shulchan Aruch cites the same ruling. Shir Nesinosim Yodam Masegas Yitin Kefitzorach Aniyim. The first get there is you should give to whatever the poor people need. That's if there's no limit to your wealth. V'bein Yodam Masegas Kol Kach Yitin Al Chomish Nechosav Mitzvah Namufchar. So the Shulchan Aruch codifies in your Deya that the Mitzvah Namufchar is a fifth. The Echad Nasarat Midei Beinanis. And the average, right, the Midei Beinanis is a tenth. Pachas Mikan Ayin Ra. Less than that, you're stingy. The Choyim is Amru Shana Rishoina Me'akeren. It means the first year you have a certain principle, you have to give, shouldn't give more than 20%. And now after you've, hi, hello. After you've given your Keren, Mikan Ve'elech Choymesh Shirviach B'chol Shana. Then you basically just have to give from your profit.
It says here only time for Anim. What's about yeshivas?
We're going to see in a minute. Right now it's for Anim. We'll see in a minute where the Talmid Chachamim start with. We're on page 354. We said that the upper limit is a fifth. If you're going to, we talked about the lower limit was like $4 a year. So l'chora we qualify that usually in one Sunday after Shachris. That's the minimum. The maximum we said a person shouldn't give more than a fifth. Then we brought a couple of sources that said the mitzvah and a mufchar is to give a fifth, and that the average is 10%. That's a midah beinanis. Anything less than 10%. And then we said a person this first year, you should calculate all your assets. That's your principal, and you can't give more than 20% of that. After you've taken care of your principal, now in the next year is your earnings and your profits. That should never be more than 20%, and that's how you go year by year. Whatever your maviach, your profit is, then you shouldn't give more than 20%.
But how did he learn that from the pasuk?
Aser ta'aser. Two tenths, which is a fifth. Now, when the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch state that one should provide for all the needs of the poor, it does not necessarily mean that one person must provide for all the poor's needs on their own. Rather, it is assumed that they will share in the burden of providing for the poor together with others in the community. Because remember, the Shulchan Aruch's first getter was, you have to make sure that the poor's needs, that the needs of the poor are met. Now, if you, as an individual, cannot meet all the needs of the poor, you by yourself should only go up to 20%. And we assume that other people can help. Says the Pischei Teshuvos. Even if you're wealthy, you don't have to provide all of the poor's needs for every poor person in the city. You assume that other people are going to participate. And in fact, the unease responsibility is to go to everybody. And it's not on one person that the responsibility lies. The responsibility is on the whole community. As depending on one's wealth. Now, we're talking about, let's say you're in a village where there's not a lot of people there. So, and let's say there's only 2 aniyim. And let's say, so the first getter, even before you talk about a fifth, is if you can provide for all the needs of that of the poor people in that village, you could do it yourself, you can do it. You're still less than 20%. You're never obligated to go above 20%.
What if the needs are so little that they don't even need 10%? What if you live in an outlying area
Where
where
is that
wealthy people?
utopian society?
Yeah, assuming in a utopian society.
Okay,
and
no, because the
5%.
Hillel asks a good question, because it says if you give less than 10%, you're considered an ayin ra. But that's not if there's no need. If there's no need, you can't say that there's an ayin ra if there's no
You
need.
live in a community that doesn't need the money.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
That's what he asked.
Yeah, oh,
So
it doesn't need-
there's
oh,
gotta
sorry.
be, we're talking about whether there's a need.
If you live in Hancock Park,
Thank you for the problem.
You can
I
always
remember
give the
it was
chandelier
poor,
food, no?
it was poor in Manhattan, and my son and I were trying to give away the money from the shul, give
Right.
for poor people, we're trying to find someone who's poor to give some money, that's $50. We see a rebbe there with
Yeah.
his son, coming out, whatever it is, walking around, and so my son gave him some money, he said,
Yeah.
thank you very much. All of a sudden we see him, he goes right into his Cadillac, huge black Cadillac, we couldn't
We're gonna
find
see,
anyone.
we're gonna learn tonight, Mirza Hashem will get there, that if you give money to a fraudulent person who's not poor, you're not Makayim, mitzvah tzedakah. And we'll see to what getter that is. So let's try to, you have to find it, if you give it to a fraudulent person, it's not considered tzedakah. Now,
Jewish communities in the entire world, we know that. We
Say again?
solicit from everywhere in the world. So
Okay.
There's no such thing as community. There's no limit of a community.
Yeah, now.
page 371, we're now doing Hilchas Tzedakah Beis. So in the last year, we mentioned that the minimum amount of tzedakah per year was approximately 15 shekel, $4. The maximum amount was 1/5 of one's earnings. However, there's another important concept that effectively determines the actual amount of tzedakah that many people give on a regular basis, which is known as Meiser Ksofim. Now, the idea of Meiser, from the word tithe, meaning a tenth, Ksofim, is that one should give 1/10 of one's earnings to tzedakah, the same way that the Meiser tithe given to the Levi in the Temple Times was 1/10 of one's produce. So, in the 6 years of the Shemitah cycle, in the first and second and fourth and fifth year of the Shemitah cycle, you gave Meiser Rishon, which was 1/10 to the Levi. Let's say you had 100 bushels. You gave a 10 to the Levi. Now you had 90 left. So you gave 1/10, which is 9. That was Meiser Sheni. Meiser Sheni had to be brought up to Yerushalayim, and you could eat it. You could buy food in Yerushalayim, etc. Now, in the third and sixth year of the Shemitah cycle, instead of the second tithe going to you, it was called Meiser Oni. And that second Meiser was given to the poor people. So based on that Meiser concept, it was thought that a person has a responsibility to give Meiser Ksofim.
Now, getting to a school, there's always a question
Now,
always had.
Jerry, we're gonna answer your question later today. That is, now a person is gonna create a Meiser fund. Based on his income, we're gonna do a calculation. He has a certain amount of Meiser money. Then you're asking the question, can you use that Meiser money for other mitzvahs beside, like buying a lulav
But the
or
money goes to
tefillin?
school who doesn't have the
Forget
money.
about a school. The first question is gonna be, can you use the Meiser money for other religious requirements? A person's supposed to buy a matzah. You're supposed to buy tefillin. You're supposed to buy lulav. Does Meiser Ksofim, that amount that you've now set aside for Meiser Ksofim, can you use that for other Jewish things? And then, of course, we'll talk about other things like school, etc. So we're going to deal with that. So first of all, what's the source of Meiser Ksofim? Is there a din of Meiser Ksofim? So it's actually mentioned in Tosfos, who cites the Sifri, right? The Sifri was the Medrash on Sefer Bamidbar. According to the Sifri, it seems like there is an obligation to give Meiser Ksofim. Tosfos and Tainus says, Aser Taser, Hachi Isser B'Sifri. Aser Taser, Es Kol Vazarecha, Yotzes Adeshan Hashana, Ein Li Ela Tfu Vazarecha. I only know that when you're giving produce, Meiser, that's Shechai V'Meiser. What about ribis? Let's say you collect interest. Now, you can't collect interest from a Jew, but you can collect interest from a Goy. Or Prokamatia, he's in business and he earns money in Prokamatia. The Kol Shar B'Vachim, other profits, real estate, whatever else he's making profits on. How do I know that all those things have to be tithed as well? Minayin, Talmud Loimar, Es Kol is a ribui. David Matzil Meimar, Es Tfuascha, my Kol Tfuascha, the Rabbis Ribis Uprakamatya, the Chol Davar Shamar V'Yachbal. So the Sifri has a source of Meiser Ksofim. Some commentaries, such as the Maharil is an early Rishon, 1400, in Ashkenaz. So many of the Ramah, when he argues with the Shulchan Aruch, in many of the halachas, he will many times cite the Maharil as his source for why he's arguing with the Shulchan Aruch. So the Maharil side by the Chasam Sofer holds that the derivation above indicates that giving Meiser Ksofim is Doraisa. Says the Chasam Sofer, the Sfiri Leila Maharil, so the Maharil, who is a very important Rishon, we rely on the Maharil for a lot of our minogim. The Chiyuv HaFresh is Meiser Ksofim, Umarish Doraisa. However, other Achronim, such as Rav Landau and the Nori Yehuda lived 1780, 1790. He's the beginning of the modern Posek era. Chasam Sofer is 1815. You start seeing Nori Yehuda questions, brain death, medicine questions. Remember, 1780, 1790, there's electricity, Isaac Newton, Benjamin Franklin. There's already modern questions being asked, Chacham Tzvi, Rabbi Kiva Eger. So it's a different era, right? The Ramah is 1500, Shach is 1620, Taz, right? Early Achronim. But this is the beginning of the later Achronim. So the Noda B'Yehuda says, Va'od, der Meiser Ksofim, der Rabbanon. So right away, we have the Chassam Sofer brings the Mariel who says that Meiser Ksofim is Deraisa. We have the Noda B'Yehuda who doesn't believe in that. He says it's Rabbanon. In contrast to both of these, the Bach, right? So the Bach is the major commentary on the Tur. You have the base. You have the Tur. Remember, the Tur was before the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch, Rav Yosef Karo built his Arba Turim on the Tur. The Tur was Rav Yaakov ben Arosh, right? They lived in Toledo in Spain, and so the main commentaries on the Tur is the Beis Yosef, who was Rav Yosef Karo. That Beis Yosef was the groundwork for the Shulchan Aruch that he wrote, and then the Bach.
But how can he be mechalek on a posuk? It's asir to asir.
No, but it's Sifri. Tosfos brings a Sifri. It's not, so the Sifri, the Medrash Halacha, like Medrash Rabbah, we don't, just because the Medrash Rabbah or the Mechilta brings things, we don't necessarily say that that's a Doraisa, but Tosfos had it as a source. Now, we did learn, they're not quoting us all of the Rabbi Yehuda. He has to deal with that Tosfos, but whatever.
Even from Yaakov Avinu, I mean, it's just...
No. Yaakov Avinu makes a neder. The Aser Taser is in Re'eh, is a portion in Re'eh that we lay on Shmini Atzeres. We lay on the 8th day of Yom
But
Tov.
it's from the same, it's a similar source.
Yeah, it's not like when Yaakov Avinu says Aser Asrenu Lach. He makes a personal neder. But you see, they don't rely on that.
Is there a halachic nafkamina, whether it's Rabbanan or...
There would be. So, for example, when a derisidic law, if it's a suffix, whether you did it, it's l'chumra. By Rabbanan, it's l'kula. And okay. So, the Bach is very important. Miu ein zel b'meiser ani mizera aretz, she mitzvahs hasem in Torah. He disagrees with all of it. He says the only mitzvah in the rice is when you give meiser from tvua. Aval masha adam meiser mimasha marviach. B'masa umatan b'ksofim. Ushar revachim eino b'chlal zeh. V'yachol iten mimenu l'tztoko l'pidyon shvuyim shere eino chayiv bo lo min haTorah v'lo min Rabbanon. They're going to say it's a minig. That Meiser Ksofim, this issue of people give Meiser Ksofim, it's not Midoraisa, it's not Midrabanan, it's Minig Balma. The Marami Rottenberg, who is another Rishon, right? 1280, 1290. Remember, he was taken captive by the Goyim. They held him for ransom. He paskined that the community should not ransom him, right? So eventually, somebody did ransom his body after he died. He died in captivity. And they ransomed the guy. There was a Jew who ransomed his body. I was in the cemetery in Worms, and the Marami Rottenberg is buried, and the guy who ransomed him is buried next to him. And both have a lot of... The Worms cemetery was not destroyed by the Nazis. It was hidden, and that cemetery goes all the way back to... There were grave sites from the year 900 and 800. It's the oldest cemetery in Europe. Very, very interesting. Marami Rottenberg is buried there. The Marami Rottenberg is also a major Ashkenazi posek that the Ramah oftentimes refers to, that this is our minig, like the Marami Rottenberg. The Maharil is a little bit after him. But they're talking about early Rishonim, especially in Ashkenaz. So he says, so the Pischei Tshuva, I think, quotes the Marami Rottenberg. That was, there is a discussion about Meiser Ksofim, is it a real chiyuv or not? Ayin b'zeh b'tshuva shar Ephraim, Siman Pei Daled, who's also a Rishon, u'v'tshuvas Chavis Yor b'Siman Reish Chav Daled, u'v'shtiltis Yavitz, Chelik Aleph Siman Vav, u'v'Sefer Ber Yaakov, Masha Kosa b'zeh, v'teim alagonim aniskorim, shenel, and so all of these bring tshuvas that seems to say that there's a chiyuv min Torah, and he says he can't believe it, that it was disappeared for them. The tshuvas Marami Rottenberg, the Fus Prague in the Prague print, Muvor Sham Kedas Habach she'einu min Torah v'lo min Rabbanon, that it's not min Doraisa, it's not min Rabbanon, ve'eino ela min Haga ba'alma. Ayin Sham umatzati b'shut tshuvas me'ava שתם עליהם גם כן בזה, עין שם בריחוס. וכן אלה בספר משלס חכמים, הלכס יסודי התורה, שאין למייסר כסופים עיקר, לא מן התורה ולא מדברי סופרים. אבל אם נוהג, now, let's say this happens to be his custom, Havi kamo minig shel mitzvah, she'ein levatel klal. Let's say a person has been doing a certain thing, and that's his minig. So the din is you're supposed to continue that minig, right? Minig in the family, people wait 3 hours, that's certain minogim, ein levatlo, im lo letzorach gadol ayin sham. So the practical conclusion of many poskim, including the Yalkut Yosef, right, the son of Ovadia Yosef, is that Meiser Ksofim has the status of a minig that it's recommended, rather than actual chiyuv. He also suggests another important point regarding how to calculate the Meiser if one does not have sufficient financial means to give the standard amount. So, Lidi Don, ein chiyuv gomer litain Meiser Ksofim b'maskurto. So first of all, he doesn't have to, here is his salary, he doesn't have to give 1/10 of his salary. Ach rabim noagim litain Meiser Ksofim, v'roim b'zesim in brach. Now he says, there are people who do Meiser of their salary, and they see bracha in it. So and that's their minig. But if he's got a hard time financial, he can't afford to give a 10th from all of his profits. So Yisne Merosh has to make a t'nai in the beginning. What he should say is, I'm going to deduct all my expenses, and whatever's left after my expenses, I'm going to give Meiser from that. So that a person can do, he gives a suggestion. But if a person's wealthy, so he certainly agrees that if one can do it, you should give Meiser. The Chofetz Chaim gave some very interesting guidelines. And again, in that Sefer Avas Chesed. It says, he gives us a way to calculate. And he says also, when he makes a Kabbalah on himself, I want to do this, he should make it tonight, and therefore all doubts will be resolved. And he says, Rishon L'kol, Tov she'yisne b'tchilas Kabbalah is a mitzvah shu b'li neder. First of all, always to say b'li neder. I'm not making a neder, it's b'li neder. So if for whatever reason he can't fulfill it, he didn't violate a neder. He recommends, have a special book. We're going to keep track of this. Says if you have a business, you took in revenue, subtract your expenses, you have your profit. By the way, why is the Chassam Sofer so familiar with this? Chassam Sofer in Radin had a grocery store.
Chofetz Chaim.
I'm sorry, what did I say?
Some Sofer.
I'm sorry. The Chofetz Chaim in Radin there are many famous stories of him running after customers. So he ran a business. They bought goods, they had expenses, and whatever profit they had. So Yasa Cheshban b'chol chatzi shana, he says at least every half year, or al kol panim b'chol shana, once a year, he should make a cheshbon. V'im yizdamin lo chas v'sholem hefsed b'toch zman zeh. Let's say he had a loss. Yinakem echeshbon harevach, so certain losses will be deducted from his expenses. U'moiser harevach yeshech mizeh meiser l'tzedakah. Whatever profit remains over, that will be what he will calculate what his meiser should be.
So after tax.
Not just tax. Well, let's talk, first he's talking about his business. We're talking about his business, expenses.
Okay.
Taxes is certainly an expense.
Yeah.
Okay. בכל משך הזה, יכתוב בפנקס כל הנסינו שיוצא לצדקה. He should write carefully everything that he's giving out לצדקה. ויוכל לכלול בחשבון של המייסר כל מה שרוגל ליתן בבית עניים. He should calculate what he gives out at the door to aniyim in that big cheshbon. Yes, he's writing checks to yeshivas and all this other stuff, but everything that he gives, he should have a cheshbon, careful cheshbon. Afilu eza pruta, says even a penny. V'yinake kol zeh l'sof min ha'meiser, and that should be thrown into the meiser as well. Im la'esa cheshbon yira sheyesh odef b'meiser masha hotzi. Let's see. Let's say now he has profit. He he should get in the habit of distributing it quickly. Now, let's say right then and there he doesn't have aniyim to give it out. He can keep the extra on the side. Etzlo, achis danulo.
At his house.
I can't speak to you.
So he's not forced to give that out right away. In fact, you don't have to keep the money segregated and sequestered and not able to use it. You can use your money. That means that calculation that you did, you don't have to keep it aside. You can spend it. He has to borrow back from himself that he used. Let's say he had $100, but there was no aniyim. So he used the $100. In essence, he loaned it to himself until the aniyim show up. So when the aniyim show up, in essence, he's borrowing from himself to pay the $100 that he. What the point is, you don't have to keep it. You can use the cash all the time as long as you keep a record of where you are in your miser. Right? Let's say now this month, you're now June 2020, and you're now you're $500 above where and you've given out in January, February, March, April, and now you have a surplus $500 and there's no aniyim. So do you have to sequester it and keep it aside and not spend it? No, you can spend it, says the Chofetz Chaim. Just next month when an ani comes, remember that belongs to that cheshbon. So you just have to keep track of the cheshbon. You can spend the cash. You don't have to keep the cash separate.
I'm sorry to, go off, but I was under I guess most of us were under the impression that we halachically have to give 10% of our income, right, our after tax income every year. But we were saying that it's just a minhag and that.
We're saying no. There's certainly the Tosfos and the Sifri says it's a doraisa. You have the Noida Yehuda that says it's a rabbanon, and you have other poskim who say it's a minig. So it's a machlokes what the status of that is. Before you came, Hillel, we talked about what is the maximum that you should give. So the person should not give more than 20%.
Right.
So then there was a debate there that held, the Torah held, that the 20% is actually mitzvah min hamuvchar, that the real mitzvah is 20%.
Well, if it's a mitzvah, then it's not a minhag. I mean,
Hang on. Then they said, the midah beinonis, what is the average that a person should give? A tenth. And if you give less than a tenth, you're considered as if you have an ayin ra.
okay.
So, in essence, our minig to give a tenth is still gehalten. And it could, what I think we should get from this is that it could be that it's a doraisa, that we're keeping it that way, but not everybody holds that way.
Right.
That's basically where we're at. But giving less than a tenth is not considered a good thing.
And then there's another issue, like people always calculate their tzedakah based upon after tax, but a lot of our tax goes for tzedakah purposes, right? If we give to the government, they give to poor people, the government supports poor people, and so is our taxes considered, what? Yeah, well, that's what that's what I was getting to. Is it goyim also, or are goyim considered?
No.
We will see who is considered adequate to do. Now, the only thing with what Hillel is saying
Like in
is,
Israel, how about in Israel?
see, let's say, let's keep it simpler. In the United States, do you really think we could get an accounting as to how much of our taxes is going for that kind of service? It would be hard practically for them to tell us what it is. Is it 5% of what we gave? Is it 2% what we gave?
Israel, it's an enormous amount.
Now,
So-
in Israel, so let's see, in the stuff in between the chapters, it may go into that specific issue. No, regarding, because that's a very good question, because you want to say that within the taxes that you gave, there's already perhaps some of the charity as well calculated. But even in Israel, it's going to be difficult to say how much is for healthcare, how much is for the F-16s, how much is for,
You know that. They have the budget shows you X goes to this, X goes to that. You can get that.
Okay.
Figure. You can definitely get it.
Nobody's
You can get it in the United States also, whether it's made public or not, I don't know, but you can.
The question is, what is considered tzedakah?
right, are you allowed to consider that in your Meister Ksafim?
If you get it, they could be up to
The
tzedakah.
government's borrowing.
No.
To pay for that.
No, I wouldn't say that that's considered tzedakah. Tzedakah is for a poor person who doesn't have, yeah. Tzedakah that we're talking about is for
But
aniyim.
he said, Yosef says also, I'm only Torah.
So we're gonna see, there's a Mila If you can find a poor person who's a Talmid Chacham, that's a Maila in your tzedakah giving.
Thank you.
Then the fifth gather that the Chofetz Chaim gives,
How many people
Im
actually?
Yimtza
look at
Shoitz-
that account? How many people actually say, okay, I'm gonna give 10% or 20%?
you just,
There's a lot of people, I tell you what, when somebody came to me and said, you know how
there's
you-
people,
you know,
absolutely.
You know how whatever you basically earn on a monthly basis, because sometimes people come to you, you don't know whether you gave Meiser, you didn't give Meiser, you have a Meiser account. I have a separate bank account, you put it there, if you put it in the separate bank account, when anybody comes along,
Right.
it's like you're not even giving your money anymore.
So by the way,
So
you saw the Chofetz Chaim says you could technically spend that money as long as you keep track of it and pay it
No, I
back.
understand, but the way that it is because sometimes when you have that separate bank account, it really helps, because basically, when people come, you know what you have available, and it's not like you're giving yours, that's a chiyuv to give it, so you don't feel like
So Jerry, that's your answer. You see, people do have a system where they give Meiser Ksofim in an organized way, exactly like the Chofetz Chaim is describing what he's giving you advice of how to do it. So Im Yimtza Shoitzi Al Tzedakah Yoiser Ma Meiser. What if he paid too much Meiser? Yesh Oimrim.
Over,
Do you besof ma Meiser shel shoresh shniyah? You can take credit for it the next year. Some say if you gave too much, you can deduct from next
what
year.
is too much, over 20?
No. You did a calculation of your Meiser.
Yes.
But then
the tax man took
you
too much.
ended up
Giving
no,
too
you
much.
ended up giving
Over
too much
20 or
Meiser.
over 10?
No, you ended up giving too much Meiser. Came December, and you saw you already spent more than what you should have spent for Meiser. So the question
10
is,
or 20?
can you roll it over
Yeah, but
into
he's
next
asking
year?
more than 10 or more
No,
than
10.
More than
They're
10?
dealing with 10.
Okay. So if you give
So,
15%.
because the Chofetz Chaim is going on Meiser Ksofim that the calculation is a tenth.
Okay.
So let's say you did it. Yesh
Yes,
oimrim.
I-
Do you chalanako lebesof ma Meiser shel shana shniya? But v'yesh machmirim b'zeh. Some say no. If you spend more this year, you don't have a right to deduct next year because you gave too much this year. Al kein tov lasos kasher kasavnu lamala. So he says, do what's right. Hainu sheyidne befresh betchilas kabbalos as mitzvos Meiser. Sheyochel los es mos l'tzedakah al smach sheyig v'legasof l'chsof matai she is done. That he keep track carefully month by month. Do a reconciliation every 6 months. You'll know where you are. Now, may one use money designated for Meiser to fulfill other mitzvos that cost money. Now, it's clear that one may not use Meiser for any mitzvos that one has a chiyuv to perform, such as spending it on buying matzah for Pesach, or buying a pair of tefillin, or a lulav. You have a chiyuv to buy that, so that there's nothing to do with Meiser, and you're an oni.
So some people make a check out to an organization when they buy the lulav and esrog in order to get a deduction. So is,
Well, that's a tax issue.
I know,
That-
but.
in your Meiser
but-
calculation,
but
it doesn't
in your
fit.
head, okay,
Doesn't count.
Doesn't
okay.
count for your Meiser
but in your
calculation.
head, if, okay, I got you. Okay.
The fact that you get to take a deduction from the federal government. So first of all, if they audit you, I don't, you got to prove that,
Yeah.
you know.
No, but you have to make your cheshbon. That's what Hillel asked you originally. Let's say that effectively you give tzedakah. That tzedakah saves you 35%, right? Because you pay less on your tax,
On your
by
tax, right.
35%, but you pay on your tzedakah. So Hillel asked that kasha in the beginning. So what happens? So let's say the guy, just to take an example, gave $100,000 of Meiser money, $100,000 Meiser money. But that money only cost him, right? He didn't have to pay $100,000
good.
because on the other side,
Yeah.
after tax, he only paid $65,000. Paid $65,000. So he's still got another $35,000. Does he have a chiyuv?
It's a good shaila. It's a very good shaila. We don't have, that's a good shaila. So we already have a few shailas. I think there's shaila about figuring out in the tax you gave what charitable things are there.
Yeah.
And Waters is a separate question.
No,
The fact that you're
yeah, but
saving money,
you're saving
are you
money by
required to give?
giving tzedakah.
I would say you would have to give a meiser of that. That means now you're a marviach $35,000. So technically, you'd have to give 3,500.
No, but you
don't have to give all the
you took
35,000.
100,000 because that was your Meiser money. That you didn't give 100,000. You only gave 65.
Right, so you profited 35 grand on that deal, so you'd give 10% of
No,
that.
no, it's not more, it's more than that.
I don't think so.
It's more than that.
You profited on the government.
No,
You
it's
didn't
more,
profit on
it's
anybody
more than
else.
that, it's
Is
more than that,
profit?
it's more than that.
Yeah.
You paid less, but if you calculated, listen, I made $1 million.
I know, but you understand, it's still a
hold on
tenth
second.
of what your
No,
marviach.
it's not correct.
Yeah, it's still a tenth.
It's a tenth of what your
marviach.
marviach.
You're left over with.
It's a tenth of what your marviach. I hear what you're saying.
No,
That-
no,
Is
that's
your
not the
tax on
question.
it
No, that's not the
65%,
question,
that's
that's not the
not
question. You took $100,000 that
So
you
that's a
wanna
different
give to Stoker.
calculation than the.
It really only cost you
That means-
65.
that means you
So
have
your
to give them
marviach
$1,000.
35, so you have to give an extra
Well,
3,500.
one second, Bill, but somebody's getting $100,000. You're getting a break on the side, but the person that you gave the money to, they're getting $100,000.
What Walter is saying is, you really didn't spend 100, you only spent 65. So your marviach 35, so you give a tenth of that.
And what you're saying then is correct, then you give a tenth of that,
Yeah,
that's correct.
yeah.
That should be the case.
Still my
That's
$600.
correct.
Now,
They'll tell you exactly.
now, this is an important halacha here.
Beautiful life.
With regard to mitzvos that one wouldn't be able to fulfill if he doesn't use Meiser money. They're not obligatory, and if one does not, and if one does them, one receives reward, but maybe you don't have the money, as well as with your Meiser Ksofim, to do those mitzvos. Poskim debate whether you can use Meiser funds for those things. We'll see what we're talking about. The Ramah writes
Sending your grandchildren.
that one must give Meiser money specifically to poor people or those studying Torah who are in need of funds. So the Ramah's Machmir, he says it's very specific what you can use the Meiser money for. However, the Shach brings poskim who permit using the funds to fulfill other mitzvos that one wouldn't have been able to perform without that Meiser money. For example, Vein lasos mi Meiser shelo dvar mitzvah kigon neiros lebeis hakneses. He wants to, donate the shemen lamor to the Beis HaKnesses. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the money. Let's say, if he didn't use the shem. So that you can't do. Oshar dvar mitzvah, rak yitnenu laniyim. But says the Shach, the Marshal, the Hadrisha, Kosfu, b'shem Tshuvas Maram, the chol mitzvah shetova liyado, any mitzvah that comes to him, kigon liyos bal bris, he has the opportunity to pay for someone's bris. Olachnis chasn v'kala l'chuppah, or chasn v'kala expenses. V'chein liknos sfarim, lilmod them, to buy books. Ulashil lachem lilmod them, to loan them. Im lo haya yecholos biyado, if otherwise he wouldn't have been able to afford that. V'lo haya oisa osa mitzvah yachol liknos b'na meiser adka. It's a huge kula by the Shach, that buying books, helping a chasn and kala, spending money on a bris, can come from your meiser money. Okay. Now, Walter I heard under his breath, what about Talmud Torah? What about providing tuition for the funds? L'chor, according to the Shach, you would be able to do it. According to the Shach, the Ramah says no.
It's more than that. So let's say that you have children, right? That it's your grandchildren. So now, let's say if you didn't pay for them, right? So the school would have to give
A bigger scholarship.
bigger financial aid to other people because you actually filling up the thing, so you're actually helping them. So is that considered like a giving its docker to the school or not? It's not so simple. You're not just giving the thing. In other words, you're helping the whole.
But here with the question is just, in your Meiser Ksofim Cheshbon, what can you do with the money? The Ramah says you can only give it to Aniyim. The Shach has expanded it. You can do more with your Meiser Kesef
No,
money.
but what I'm asking more than that. I'm asking if you give the tzedakah, if you give the money for your children, right?
That's not, by the way, that you haven't been Makai Mitzvah Tzedakah by giving it to the school. That's a Mitzvah Tzedakah we see is the getter has been made very tight. It's giving it for Aniyim who cannot be Mefarnes themselves. When you give to a school, it's for Mitzvah's Talmud Torah. It's not tzedakah. The Shach wants to say you can use your Meiser Ksofim for it.
I need him in the school that can't afford to go
That's
to
what he
school.
said.
Scholarship.
Yeah, it's basically,
It's a
you're providing
scholarship.
scholarship. That's what
Okay,
scholarship money comes from.
if it's being used to provide for people who can't afford it, then that's certainly.
Those are the two things.
By paying their tuition, you're
Automatically
giving the school
it is.
opportunity
In
to
other words,
use
a family
the
member,
set
if I
aside
know the
funds
guy,
for others.
a son or a daughter doesn't have the money for tuition, and I give her a check for the tuition every month, then it's tzedakah.
According to the Shach, we're just talking about your cheshbon of your Maaseh Ksofim. Can you deduct? For example, I have to give an X amount of money per year, $200,000. So in that calculation, what can I deduct from that list? If I provided money for a bris, if I provided money for a wedding, that allows me to use my Maaseh Ksofim for that purpose. That's all the halacha is talking about. Buying Sfarim. Okay, that's the Shach. The Ramah says no. Say it again.
Poor, yeah, but who says they're poor? They-
Now,
For the school, for all the Talmudim.
Many-
Svarim,
many contemporary poskim. Let's see what the later day poskim say. The Shach is 300 years ago. Many contemporary poskim rule that ideally one should give the bulk of one's money separate from Meiser to the poor, and not use it for other mitzvos. Right? Says the Piskei Teshuvos, "Ulamaisa noktu haposkim shelatchatchila bevadai tzarich latet et ikar hameiser laniyim, umitzvah hamuvcher latet leinyan amolei Torah bedavka." That was what Hillel was dealing with. That it's not just aniyim, but aniyim who are studying Torah. Ki ikar hameiser nitkan b'shvil lahachzik amolei Torah l'man yichasku b'toras Hashem. So this is this issue, the poskim dispute, whether the money that one spends on supporting one's children from age 6 and above who live at home may be deducted from your Maaseh Ksofim.
Maybe.
The basis of the argument is the fact that the technical halachic obligation to feed one's children extends only until age 6. From then onwards, the obligation of supporting them stems only from the mitzvah of tzedakah. The Shach permits counting such expenses as Meiser. The Taz does not. Says the Shach, Uvitshuvas Marami Rottenberg, Ulefazer Masruseim Laniyim, Hagdoilim, She'enu Chayav L'tapel Be'amutter. So you're allowed to give to your children, and it's considered Meiser Ksofim. Dafilu Aviv Mutter Loses. Imuani. You can give it to your father if he's poor. Shum Kavod Aviv. Aval. Levonov. The mutter b'mokum she'ein bi'ir takana loses lekis shel tzedakah. As long as there is no takana in the city to give to a general community fund.
Giving to your father is much more of a.
If he's poor.
than your
If
mother.
he's poor.
If he's poor, because that's a mitzvah of kibbud.
You're Mekayim both. You're both. You're Mekayim kibud and tzedakah. And he says it's mutter to give to your children, even if he has other funds for it, not just the Meiser funds. The Zavit tzedakah, he wants to say it's considered tzedakah. But says the Taz, Teda, the Hagam b'masha adam zan bon of aktonim amrina beperk narshin nifsafsa, the Hava b'chlal oisit tzedakah b'choleis v'chisal the daish yotzi adam Meiser shelo lozn bon of aktonim. The Taz doesn't accept it. He says to feed your children is not going to does not qualify to use up your Meiser Ksofim. So we have a machlokas poskim regarding this issue.
So
Now,
parents, yeah.
the Aruch HaShulchan, remember, he was the posek that most America, before the Mishnah Brura, became the de facto posek in the 60s. When we went to Hillel, I don't know if you remember, Rabbi Meir Cohn, our Rebbeim, we started in 6th grade, we broke our teeth learning Mishnah Brura. All of a sudden, Mishnah Brura became, it was after Lakewood, around Kotler in the 40s, the Mishnah Brura was moved. Prior to that, the major posek that most American Balabatim used, and the Aruch HaShulchan. Said the Aruch HaShulchan, he ruled with the Taz, that one may not use the Meiser funds for the expense of his children. But the Yalkut Yosef, the Sfardi, says he holds like the Shach. So aval hoitzos banav uvnois of aktanim aval gav the darshinan v'oisei tzedakah b'chol eis. It says in the pasuk in Ksub zeh zan banav uvnois of kshen ktanim mikom hakom ein zeh bichlal tzedakah. The Aruch HaShulchan rules against that. V'al tzad hadrash amru chazal kloimar the gam zeh mitzvah v'al chalil lachshov zeh bichlal tzedakah. Means it's considered in derech drush, but not that it's mi ikra din tzedakah. Dim lo chen lo lo yigal aniyim av pruta achas. It says the Aruch HaShulchan something very practical. If you're going to put all these other things that you can deduct it from your Meiser Torah, the Aniyim will not get a penny. V'af hamagdal b'nei bonov of b'nei b'noisav of noiseim, grandchildren, Nearly shena yochel lachshav zeh b'chlal tzedakah b'maiser. Uvnei vonim arei ein kevonim. Aval magadel yosem v'yisoma mimishpachto. But let's say, God forbid, there was an orphan, right? Or shalom mimishpachto vaday shehut tzedakah gdola. V'yachsov zeh b'maiser. That's considered maiser money. Let's say there's a new requirement. Somebody has come to him and there's a huge need for funds. He doesn't even have that. I guess he can borrow, give it as a loan for the base of future earnings. So he has to do a calculation to keep track. He's going to advance for what he's going to use for something else and pay himself back. The same thing we said, if he's using his cash, he just has to keep track of the Meiser Ksafim. But you see very clearly, Aruch HaShulchan does not allow the funds for your children to do that.
I think there's an issue structurally in that today, we give to institutions. We don't give to the poor, we do give to poor
Individual.
people knocking on our door.
That's a few
Yes.
dollars.
But we give mostly to institutions, like if you give.
Tom
to Shar-
Shabbos.
You give to Shaare Zedek Hospital.
Yes.
You're paying for somebody's medical care,
Yes.
can afford medical care.
Absolutely.
So it's a different,
That would be considered full tzedakah. That's not,
No.
here we were talking about just raising
but
your
that's what
kids.
Walter was saying, what I'm saying is that if you give to, let's say, to Yavna, and there are poor families that can't afford.
It's no question considered tzedakah.
Right.
No question about it.
It's a different-
Based on that.
The problem is that on a lot of these institutions.
No, but
a
Hillel,
lot of these-
Hillel, I wasn't dealing with that. I was dealing with somebody who has the money, and he has a Meiser Ksefim pile, and he wants to say, "Oh, this is going to be for my kids' tuition." That you can't do because that's Talmud Torah. That's not tzedakah. To give a donation to the school for poor kids for scholarship fund, that's clearly tzedakah. That's only. You see, what the Shach was trying to do is try to say other expenses that you have religiously, a bris, buying books, that could come out of your Meiser Ksafim. The Ramon, other poskim say no.
What I'm saying is, if you pay, let's say it's mitzvah of Talmud Torah, so you paid for your children's tuition, but on that mitzvah of Talmud Torah, you know that 30% of that mitzvah of Talmud Torah that you give.
You want to say there's some stock in there as well?
It's going to other, it's really.
Oh, because it's over, because the tuition is overfunded to allow for the
Not
thing.
really, but it does help.
Okay, so you want to say that there is some, there is some tzedakah in even the regular tuition. Okay.
So
To
when
pay
you,
for
when you
someone's
donate to the
feeding?
shul, if you donate to the shul, it's foreign or anything, so then that's not tzedakah then, is it?
Seems to be from the,
You're talking about the menorah, if someone give a menorah to
According to the Shach,
yeah.
according to the Shach, it would. According to the Ramon, it would not be, unless you say, I want these funds to go to the, right? Rabbi Krause has a fund, a charity
No,
fund.
that's tzedakah, but that's something else, but if
Okay.
you donate foreign to the shul, or you donate.
So there's other, that's called Shem and Lamor. We give a bracha. Misha Bercha V'Sein Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov. We brachas. Every Shabbos we say the bracha that these people who gave money for the light and for this get a special bracha. But that's not on tzedakah. That's as community support because you kept the shul up. It's a different din. Now, the fact that the federal government allows you to deduct it from your tax, that's a different din. We're talking now Meiser Ksafim. What qualifies, what doesn't
You
qualify.
see, giving money, I think giving money for your grandchildren, for the school, is not really tzedakah.
That's what we were
because
talking- that's what
You're
we-
trying to maintain that child at the same level as you are, as a level as though he has the money. In other words, they're not really poor, but you don't want
That's
them
right.
poor. You
That's
give
why
them-
we say it's not really tzedakah. It's a different mitzvah. You're required to be. You have to teach your child Torah. That's a mitzvah. You have to pay. You have to do it even though it costs you money. So you get a different schar. You know, Kodesh Baruch Hu's keeping track of all the various things. That goes into a different bucket, but it's not. That's not a good thing. Let's just see the Yalkut Yosef. Anoig lehafrish mos. Anoig lehafrish mos meiser mimaskeroso mikol revachav. If someone who's giving meiser from his salary. Rishai l'nakos midmei meiser dmei parnosus v'chakolos banav of nois of agdoilim ayosem al gil sheishonim. He says very clearly, you can subtract from your meiser ksafim the cost of raising your children. Afilu imem soimchem al shulchano. V'azan is banav of nois of nefshav kois it's tzedakah b'choles. And he paskins, it's considered like it's tzedakah.
He argues with our.
He definitely argues with them. He says the money that you spend for your the Yalkut Yosef is alive, is the son of Avadia Yosef.
Yeah.
So he says the money that you give for your wedding is Meiser Ksofim. Kigol Tzorch Dira V'Reitim, how about this? Buy them an apartment, buy them furniture. Kidei Sheyuchlu Livnos is Beisam. V'kol Shekain Kishavon V'Amshich Masak B'Torah B'Koilelim Harabish Harachu B'Yam, right? If you provide their stipend for Kolel, it's considered Paiser your Meiser Ksofim. V'chein Kishavon V'Nisus L'Tamid Chachamim. Hashoitim Ba'al Shel Torah. Certainly when they married Tamid Chachamim, Shemitzvah Gedoyla Hilafarnas B'Kavod and Tzedakah Gedoyla, he says no problem.
But that's why that's the exact answer, that by the Sfaradim, it's very hard to get money out of them because they're held by this posek. So they gave away all their mice money to their family, apartments, this, that. So why should they give you?
So, by the way, so you see the value, of, now we understand sociological things a lot better, just learning halacha. We see that by the different psak, it's guiding how the societies conduct themselves, very much so.
It's practical, how long. It's practical, they realize
I mean,
they
they have
need to
their
put their
own
children
small.
through, they wanna
They
keep
have
them.
And they hold, not like remember, the Ramah, they're all like the Ramah. The Ramah was the one who was machmir regarding to say that it's got to give in for
Obviously
aniyim.
they
Remember,
have-
the Ramah was in Poland. There was a lot of poor people there. And maybe by the Sephardic communities, they were all wealthy.
But they have al mili smoch here.
Say it again?
They have on who to rely.
Of course they do. Now, here's another good shaila. Besides from one's earnings, what if you got a gift? Do you have to give meiser from that? Right. Hayem rak mi kesef shemarvichim tzarich lafrish meiser? Is it only money that you earn? O shetzarich lafrish meiser gam mi kesef shemakablim b'matana. Ha-mitzvah lo says meiser ksofim chala al kol kesef shigil la'adam. Anyway you got the money. Ben kesef shekibil b'Yerusha, o kesef she'erviach b'maskores,
But the
o
kesef
mischar
is
business,
different.
o kesef shekibil b'matana mekroivim, o chaverim, o manokim shegod from shemanikim. Grants, different organizations, or severance pay, or workers' comp, pitzurim beisim of the kolak zval letzarech lafish meiser ksofim.
Government does.
Okay. Wow. I have to stop today.